Hello everybody, my name is Marcelo Pinheiro. I'm a Principal Engineer, Senior Cloud Solutions Architect at Intel, working in Microsoft Technology Center. So this video is about Azure Stack Hub and how it will help you in your journey to the hybrid cloud adoption with Intel architecture. So customers are embracing hybrid cloud more and more. 94% of the enterprises are using cloud services from multiple providers. Docker adoption, containers adoption at large, has been growing exponentially lately. And the enterprises, IT enterprises, they use their private cloud to offer IT services to their business units, to their line of business. So the change workload landscape has mainly three pillars. The workloads move across multiple clouds. So no single enterprise uses a single cloud provider. And the data placement is critical where data makes sense, closer to the source of the data or in a distributed fashion at the cloud. If you look at some countries, they have regulations and controls such as data sovereignty. So you have to ensure that your data resides in appropriate locations. The other benefit of adopting DevOps is for its elasticity and flexibility. So if you have self-service portals, the line of business, the business units within your enterprise, they can take advantage of that to use more and more business services that are more aligned to their end business. So if you look from the modern data states where things are, as I've mentioned before, we have on-premises that is still there and we won't go away. The evolution of on-premises is from a more hybrid and edge perspective with new services, new features, and new configurations to support the changing workload landscape, as I explained in the beginning. So the hybrid is the bridge that connects on-premises to the cloud, to the public cloud. And then on-premises is for you have data close to the source, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the latency requirements, the response time requirements for certain applications. And yet you have the flexibility to go to the public cloud to consolidate multiple points in data points so we can have more security and performance in the public cloud, consolidating multiple hybrid cloud points. When we look at the hybrid cloud challenge, if you use any cloud service provider, if you look at the slides, you're going to see the applications on top. That's what you manage today. Or maybe the VM creation, or if you use infrastructure as a service, or even just the service, database services, if you use software as a service, or even Salesforce or any other example, the platform as a service as well. When it comes to hybrid cloud, everything's managed by you. So you have to deal with the whole data center infrastructure from the power supply, cooling, all the hardware, obviously, the cloud software platform, the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, and the applications on top. In order to manage all of this, it's quite a daunting task. It's very challenging today. However, with Azure Stack Hub, it's built-in cloud, native cloud. You don't have to be worried about how to build and put all the pieces together. It's already there for you. So the systems are pre-validated, pre-certified. I'll talk about this more later. But you have to worry about the applications, obviously, but you do the management. That's the benefit. You manage everything up and down the stack. From the hardware perspective, from the cloud software perspective, you have control over what is running locally, right? So when it comes to, I like this picture, it's a clear separation of how Azure operates and how Azure Stack family and more Azure Stack Hub precisely here in this scenario. So if you have from Azure, you have people who use Azure are Azure customers. People who use Azure Stack Hub would be your customers, your enterprise customers, your government customers, your line of business. And on Azure side, Azure's operated by Microsoft engineers. On Azure Stack Hub side, it's your team, you, who operate the whole cloud. You don't have to build the cloud. The cloud is there for you. You have to operate it. You have to understand what the best practices are. You have to understand how to update it, how to keep it up and running, how to keep it secure. But you do all the work. So that's a key difference between a cloud the cloud operating models and job roles, the hybrid and public cloud. So when it comes to Azure Stack Hub, it's an extension of Azure. So the look and feel is the same. If you log into the Azure portal, if you log on the Azure Stack Hub portal, it's the same thing, the same experience. You don't have to train yourself again on something new. The look and feel, all the menu, all the things that you can do is very much like Azure. However, not all the services are down from Azure to Azure Stack Hub. There is a set of services that would make sense to have on-premises that Azure Stack Hub adopts from Azure. And it's growing, constantly growing every day. Every new announcement, like last Ignite, the Windows Virtual Desktop, AKS, Azure Kubernetes Services, new VM profiles, everything that is coming out, data streaming analytics, everything's coming down from Azure to Azure Stack Hub. That's obviously based on customer demands and what makes sense to have data local and be compatible with the infrastructure of Azure Stack Hub. So Azure Stack Hub is a combination of software, services, hardware, and support. That's the combination of Azure Stack Hub with the benefit of being an extension of Azure. Look and feel the same experience, and you don't have to retrain yourself if you're already knowledgeable in Azure. When it comes to the hardware choices, it's and the integrated delivery experience. Again, as I said in the beginning, the hardware is already defined for you. You have SKU options that you can choose based on the storage piece, on the amount of cores, memory sizes, based on your applications and what you're going to deploy on top of Azure Stack Hub. But it's an integrated system that is provided by multiple hardware providers, as you can see in the screen. It's fast to deploy. If you look at the complexity of deploying a cloud, if you have gone through the process once or multiple times, you see that it's not trivial and easy to get all this software-defined storage, software-defined networking ready, all the things together, all the platform as a service. If you look from Azure Stack Hub deployment experience, it's way faster than if you're going to do your own, right? You can deliver hundreds of VMs the same fashion that you can do on Azure using ARM, the Azure Resource Manager. And you get, when you deploy Azure Stack Hub, you have ready for you to use infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. Again, if you want to, you don't have to build a cloud to use a cloud. Azure Stack Hub is the cloud built for you, and you have to use on top of it. It has the benefit also of pay-as-you-use or pay-as-you-go. It's a similar model that Azure deploys today. So it's a fee for consumption based on what you're going to consume. So there's no upfront licensing costs. And there's a disconnected fashion that I'll talk a little bit more that you can, it's also called capacity model, that you pay for everything upfront for disconnected scenarios. And cruise ship, government, defense, anything that requires a disconnection from Azure, you have that flexibility as well. And since it's integrated to Azure, when we talk about the pay-as-you-go, you have a single bill from Azure that is connected to Azure Stack Hub. So from the management perspective and financial perspective, you can have that easy for you. It's integrated support, so consistent support call. It's a similar support experience that you have with Azure. And no matter who you call, you can call the hardware provider, you can call Microsoft directly, and you can open tickets. It will be you have a consistent support experience from that perspective. When we look about the service and technologies, the link in the bottom there, it's been constantly updated with the Azure Stack roadmap. So you can see the new announcements, what is in preview, what is coming, what is being public now, all the new services, all the innovation that Microsoft and Intel they bring together. And those items, those pillars, there is just a reflection of some of those. Azure Kubernetes Services Containers was just recently made public or preview last Ignite. Lots of networking, load balancer, VPN gateway, storage with managed disks, blobs, queues, managed tables, virtual machines, VM sets, scale sets, Azure App Services, Azure Functions, the marketplace with lots of ISVs providing their ready-to-use item in the marketplace, the gallery item in the marketplace. So this is a similar, if you look from that perspective, going back to my analogy to Azure, that's similar with what we have on Azure. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, just use it at your disposal when you deploy Azure Stack Hub. So when it comes, where is that available? It's like the reach is huge. So Azure regions, 54 and growing. You can have hundreds of service providers and thousands of enterprises. So enterprises here is the Azure Stack that you can connect to any of the Azure regions. Azure is available in more than 140 countries today and more than 600 services. Azure Stack has a subset of that in country availability and services as well. In the previous page, I showed the roadmap. It also shows where Azure Stack is available, so you can go and check. It's been constantly updated. So when it comes to Azure Stack Hub, there are three main features, if you will. It's the consistent application development, the Azure services available on premises, and the purpose-built integrated system. From an Intel perspective, we touch point on all three of those pillars, but today we're going to concentrate on the purpose-built integrated systems. When it comes to the purpose-built integrated systems, there's this whole architecture, hardware and topology definition, validation, and that evolves with the next-gen Intel hardware that we provide to Microsoft and partners. All the deployment configuration provisioning, there's a huge amount of validation and certification that is done. A very extensive work here to guarantee the reliability, the robustness, predictability of use, try to catch all the errors prior to releasing it to production. Monitoring diagnostics, security and privacy, including penetration tests, business continuity, checking how disaster recovery would work. What if a node fails? Patch and update, and field replacement of parts. I'll talk about a little bit more in details when I cover the Intel architecture details for those items. So when it comes to an integrated system, obviously we're not talking about just servers. We're talking about the whole cloud solution, which includes top-of-rack switches, management switch or BMC switch, the nodes themselves, the 4 to 16 nodes, and an extra server that is called the hardware lifecycle host. That what is called in Azure Stack Hub terminology a scale unit. You can have multiple scale units, but that's one scale unit, up to 16 nodes. The TORs are configured in a way to support the traffic, in a way that is data will flow from one server to the other the best way possible using RDMA. That's a requirement to have. In all the nodes, they have the same configuration. So if you look from the flow of this, there's the architecture, hardware, and topology definition that goes each OEM, together with Microsoft and Intel, they define what is going to be in the box, what is going to be offered by Azure Stack Hub when it comes to amount of cores, memory, storage perspective, network perspective. And that comes from the experience of each OEM and Microsoft and Intel, understanding the workload deployments, back to the initial slides of the changing landscape, workload landscape, of how the workloads behave, how they're characterized, how what would be the best configuration, and that is tied to the VM profile that Azure Stack Hub brings down from Azure. That is this whole combination in the capacity planning model that I can use for Azure Stack Hub to understand how many VMs you can support or what kind of VMs you can support on your hardware. We do that all in our labs together with Microsoft. We do a lot of deployment configuration provisioning. Obviously, when we do that, we look at our current hardware, our next gen, what is coming next, and when it comes to CPU, storage technologies, network technologies. So we use our products to say, okay, this is behaving this way, and we provide feedback internally to our teams to say, well, for a hybrid cloud perspective, we could improve this and this, specific features, because that's how the workload is behaving better. And also to Microsoft on feedback on, hey, we saw this that could be optimized to run the best way by doing this. So specific things, I won't go into details, obviously, but that's That's what we do from the deployment configuration provisioning perspective. For my end customer, this is all transparent to you all. From my OEM, this is all transparent to you all because you get everything when it's ready and validated and already certified to be deployed in the field. Things that we also do work is monitoring diagnostics to understand what things are failing, where things are failing, how can we proactive and preventively do some work here to avoid those failures. Security and privacy, on the hardware security, on the penetration tests, that's where we have a lot in like TPM support, trusted platform module support, all the BitLocker usage tied to the hardware features that we have. And the other thing that we do work very closely with Microsoft is the patch and updating process. When it comes to, if you, on your own experience, let's table that from a laptop perspective. If you have your own notebook and you do a Windows update, and you have to shut down everything, reboot it, and it takes some time updating the process, it reboots, it has the new updated system. That's simple, trivial, it does automatically for you or can do that manually. On Azure Stack Hub, it is a fast-paced cloud model. So it has a faster update time monthly that you can do the patch and update. Since you manage the whole stack, you have to do it. However, the process is built in, so you don't have to go and do the update yourself. You download the update package and just click, and the update process internally does the whole process for you. It does put a server outside the cluster, update the OS, update everything else, what is needed from the hardware perspective, if that's the case, and reboots and bring it back to the cluster, go to the next node. It does that automatically for you. So again, the concept of not building a cloud, but using a cloud, you don't have to be concerned about the internal details of how this update will work. Oh, is this Windows update should be applied or not? That's all done by Intel and Microsoft in the backstage, so you can have that robustness when you click on the P&U process, which is not trivial, by the way. Same thing for field replacement parts. When you're replacing a storage device, obviously that storage device has to be taken out of the storage pool. And when you plug a new storage device, it has to come into the pool, be added, and all the synchronization happens. So all those kind of tests we do at Intel in our labs to help make it more reliable for you. When it comes to the configuration process, obviously, from power supply, it's redundant power supply. You have the hardware lifecycle host that does the hardware. It has the hardware monitoring software from each OEM. They have their own solutions. It has all the firmware configuration update. That's where we start the Azure Stack deployment, Azure Stack Hub deployment today. It creates a DVM, temporary VM, deployment VM, that does all the deployment for you on all the stack nodes. You have the management switch and the top of rack switch. The configuration is provided by the OEM, depends on the switch vendor that they're using. And you just have to apply the configuration, or the OEM will do that service for you. And you don't have to be concerned about what is doing what, and from that perspective. When it comes to the scale unit itself, up to 16 nodes, 4 to 16 nodes. Today's minimum requirements are 2 10-core piece, 256 gig of RAM, minimum 10 gig, dual 10 gig, OS 400 gig, ideally mirroring with 2 OS drives. And the storage pieces are flash, NVMe, or SSD devices, SATA or SAS devices, or 4 capacity drives. Could be NVMe, could be a SATA SSD, SAS SSDs, or HDD. Inside the SKU unit, all servers, they have to have the same configuration. So that's one of the prerequisites. You have the same configuration when you're deploying Azure Stack Hub. When it comes to hybrid use cases, how are you going to use this? So we understand now how Azure Stack is built, what is the behind-the-scenes process in order to make it robust, reliable, so you can use. And the question now is, so what? What can I do with it, right? So for hybrid use cases, 3 main use cases are top of mind when we talk about Azure Stack Hub. Edge and disconnected, the regulatory and data sovereignty that I've mentioned previously, and application modernization. For instance, if you have an edge and disconnected solution, First, why would we have that? For multiple reasons. So data sovereignty is one. Real-time latency, response time. Applications are sensitive to faster response time, so they have the local data processing in the first place, and you don't have any connectivity to Azure. You still can do the same operations that you do locally without the Azure connectivity, but you can use Azure if you want to do batches or send data for aggregated analytics or modeling. You can still do that. It's not connected, but you can get data out of Azure Stack and it's connected fast and send back to Azure. If we move forward and look at the cloud applications to meet multiple regulations, if you see here in the example of the slides here, you can have the application on Azure. It has some checkboxes there, and let's say you have the same applications, but you cannot expose certain features. You can redeploy the application with those features that you cannot have available or exposed for country one, for example. So that specific application will comply with the local regulatory or the government mandate that you have specifically for that region, and yet is the same applications, just limiting what you're going to expose or what kind of operations you're going to do. And similarly, you can do that for country 2 and 3, where you can have the same application model, but with different deployment characteristics. But again, no changes to the application. When it comes to modern applications, Azure Stack Hub, it has platform as a service ready for you that you can deploy. You can deploy Azure Functions, you can deploy serverless computing, you can deploy microservices and containers with Azure Kubernetes services. So if you have your application already deployed on Azure Kubernetes services on Azure, you have Azure Kubernetes service running on Azure Stack, that's easy to transition and make it compatible without any changes or with minimal changes. So it's a consistent programming model that you can use from the same Azure service that you have on Azure Stack Hub and on Azure Stack on Azure. Not all Azure services are on Azure Stack Hub. I'm repeating this multiple times just to make sure it's clear. Moving forward, how can we drive competitive advantage with Intel? All that being said, all the Intel behind the scenes work. Now let's talk about specifically some examples, right? When we look at for the instructions, that might not be totally clear to most folks, but if you look at how Azure Stack Hub is built, it has a ton of security requirements. Data is encrypted at rest and in transit, and it uses BitLocker. BitLocker uses Intel ASNI instructions. And Intel ASNI instructions are advanced encryption standards, new instructions that we evolve every hardware generation to make it faster, to make it better, to make it more robust. So that's the kind of work that you can benefit by using Intel data center portfolio. Another example is that if we use the software development tools, if your application has a bottleneck or a performance problem, you can use vTune for analysis. And then out of vTune, you can get suggestions on the hotspots. What are the top functions that are causing the performance problem? What are the bottlenecks there? And if you look from the same perspective for every single Intel, not only instruction sets, but in products like processors, obviously comes with chipsets. We have QAT, Quick Assist technology for compression and encryption. We have our Ethernet business. We have ASICs, silicon photonics. We have FPGAs. On the storage piece, we have the Optane drives. We have QLC drives, large storage devices. So we do all the work, make sure that it's working, it's fine-tuned, it's adjusted to work better with Azure Stack Hub and Azure family products at large. So we do all that work together with Microsoft. So when the OEMs choose their hardware, it's already tested, validated, and it's fine-tuned to the best. Obviously, we are constantly learning and improving as Azure and Azure Stack, they are CI/CD, constant integration, constant development. We are always learning from user experience, from feedbacks to improve our tools, to improve our hardware, to improve our firmware process. So that's a learning process. We all are in this journey. But we use a lot of our instructions in our Intel products on Azure Stack Hub. So that's how you can differentiate with Intel, and Azure Stack Hub solutions. OEMs, they have the prescribed solutions, and then obviously in the backstage, we're supporting them and providing that technical assistance, if you will. When it comes to Xeon Scalable, we have 2 generations now. We have Skylake and Cascade Lake. So it's fine-tuned to demanding workloads, to cloud workloads. Again, it goes back to my previous slide of the learning phase that we go through when we receive feedback from customers, from workloads, how applications are developed, or how they're being used. And we fine-tune that to our CPU, and that translates to new instructions. That translates to different way of how the instructions operate sometimes. So the ultimate goal is to deliver high performance, large memory capacity with our Intel Optane persistent memory, advanced security features with all the new features that we're bringing into silicon. So that's exposed through our integration with Azure Stack Hub. So a summary here of what Azure Stack is and what Azure Stack Hub isn't. First, it's not a virtualization replacement. If you're looking at this, that's not the place to look at. Azure Stack Hub is a hybrid cloud platform. Azure Stack Hub is not for enterprises and governments who are looking to build their clouds. It's a cloud built for you. So it's an integrated system with infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. It's not bring your own, I'll do my own stuff here and I'll put things together. No, it's a thought process, well prescribed, tested, validated, with all robustness that can go through a very thorough process on making it available for you on production level, hardware and software. As I said before, it's constantly being updated for Azure consistency. So Azure updates itself very frequently. Azure Stack Hub as an extension of Azure is not very different. If you do deploy your own, you have static systems, you deploy, or sometimes you do not update because, oh, it's going to cause me problem. I have to do a lot of stuff. For Azure Stack Hub, all the process is built in for you, and it's all taken care of to make sure the workloads are transitioned to a different node when that node is being updated, and so on and so forth. Last but not least, it's truly open and flexible, just like Azure. So that the examples that I gave about the application modernization, that you can have a single application running in multiple regions, what the specific needs without changing the application code. So it's not a .NET Windows only. Obviously, it runs on top of Microsoft products, but it's like Azure mentality, of the cloud mentality. It's a hybrid cloud, built-in cloud for you. You don't have to build the cloud yourself. Just use it. So how do I move forward? So if you're looking for a development kit, Azure Stack Hub has a single node development kit. You can use it, you deploy it on a single node, on a single server, and it has most of the functions that you can deploy on an Azure Stack Hub, if I'm not mistaken, all functions. It's used for education, for proof of concept, for application development, and demonstration to potential customers internally, so you can start there. If you know already that, if you have gone through that phase, if you have used Azure Stack Hub in any place, so the production level, the OEM solution is the one to go. So you can choose from any of your OEMs and do the capacity planning model, understand how the support works, understand how your workload works, and what would fit best for your environment when it comes to thermal solutions, cooling, hardware profile, amount of cores, memory, storage, and then you can go to your OEM of choice and they will help you out through this journey. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying with me till now. This is how Intel and Microsoft could accelerate the hybrid cloud adoption. Let us know how can we help in this journey. Thanks again.